From the Diary of Bill Lowy, Friday, October 23rd, 1964. Today I went on my first real assault mission. It seems that our gunships had located a Viet Cong force of about 150 men with some automatic weapons and 2 mortars. There was a battalion of ARVN moving south into the area and a reinforced company moving north into that area. Supposedly the only avenue of retreat for the VC was to the west. Our job was to land a reinforced company to the west of the VC area, so we moved into the area with our troops. As we were approaching the area, an automatic weapon opened up at us from the left. Hank and I could see the bullets hitting the water directly to our front. Luckily, the gunship saw him about the same time I did, and he fired 6 rockets into that area. That was the last of the only enemy fire that I saw on that mission. We landed our troops in a rice paddy. The water was up to their armpits as they jumped out of the choppers. That particular company of VC was caught in a well-planned vice. But the ARVN troops, with their usual efficiency, let the whole company escape. All the casualties assessed were by our own gunships. My time in war. The first thing I remember is the darkness. The canopy of trees above was too thick to see stars or the moon. Faint colored lights distantly on the horizon told me where I was heading. The surrounding foliage rustled, making the lights strobe. Did the wind cause the movement, or was something else there? It was quiet in the jungle, chirping crickets and rain the only sounds. There was a noise in the distance, of something I'd never heard before. Not in person anyway. Maybe in movies. It sounded like bombs, but that couldn't be right, could it? I felt slightly scared, but did not know why. They said I was in no danger, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was in the bushes. Something that didn't want me there. I felt like I could get swallowed by the night, stolen away by darkness, never to see the light again. I called for my friend. "Jay Flan," I bellowed. No response. "Flanagan, where are you?" I yelled louder, hoping he was the only one around. He just graduated from basic. How could I lose him so quickly? Suddenly, there was a whir and a bright orange flame. It was an explosion. I shouted out in panic, yet another blast erupted near me. I ran. Anywhere was better than where I was, but where was I going? To some tent filled with guys I didn't know? To a helicopter idling heroically nearby? The explosions increased. Then a barrage of bullets buzzed by, settling somewhere among the trees behind me. Rifle barrels revealed themselves from the brush, flashes of light coming from their tips as they slung lead. I was caught in the middle of a skirmish that I didn't understand, in a fight that wasn't mine. I kept running until I saw Jason standing there maniacally, arms crossed in the middle of the path. I stopped, asking where he went and why he looked so calm. Unexpectedly, there was a flash of light and a scream, this time from below me. I looked down. My foot was on a glass plate. Light flickered beneath, revealing punji sticks, sharp pieces of bamboo the Vietnamese used to stick into the ground, acting as gruesome traps. Had this been real, I would have certainly lost my foot and almost certainly had died. Jason stood there, laughing. He led me there, knowing I'd triggered the trap. "What the hell is this?" I asked, panting heavily. "The Vietnam War experience. Isn't that what the sign said, stupid?" I walked to the exit, his snickers behind me haunting my pride. I exited the room. "This is a crazy museum," I said, "but pretty cool." "Yeah, we go through here and do a scavenger hunt to learn about our history before we graduate." "Well, that was definitely immersive." "Absolutely. I gotta say, if that was normal for my grandpa, I see why he was so messed up." We laughed. I remember the fear and the would-be trauma. Nothing more. Today's entry is really the first entry that details a day that many would believe was typical of a Vietnam-era helicopter pilot. Popi explains how he goes on an assault mission, transporting a company of ARVN to hopefully cut off a VC retreat. He was the target of automatic weapon fire, since his helicopter was close to the ground, transporting troops, and luckily a gunship saved he and his co-pilot, Hank, by blowing the area up with rockets. The story I included alongside Popi's diary is one of the first things I ever wrote about his service. I described going into a room at the National Infantry Museum and Soldier Center in Fort Benning, Georgia, after seeing my friend Jason graduate from the Army's basic combat training boot camp. We went to the museum and he proudly showed off his knowledge of the Army and the infantry. At one point, he cruised ahead of me, because I was a bit too busy reading, and I stumbled upon the room that I depict in the story. He knew it was coming up and thought it'd be funny to make me experience the strangeness of the exhibit. The experience stuck with me. It was something I had with which I could connect to Popi. It was fake. I was safe. But it was disorienting, and attempted to make the museum-goer experience a brief moment living in a Vietnam soldier's shoes. It brings up a few questions, mainly about museums and their general shift towards experiential exhibits instead of artifacts and writing. Are things like this meant to be experienced, even briefly, in a museum? Is it right to keep a room like this in a place where a Vietnam veteran could stumble through it? What would it do to one of them? The photo I chose for today seems to somewhat accurately depict Popi's diary entry. It features men jumping out of a helicopter and into a rice paddy. I'm Alex Lowy, and I hope you have enjoyed listening to this episode of Dearest Suzie, and receiving messages from the past that my Popi wrote exactly 60 years ago. I sincerely appreciate your time and interest. Please consider following the podcast on your preferred platform, and if you're enjoying it, I kindly ask that you take the time to rate the show and leave a review. Also, please follow the project on YouTube, X, and Instagram. All likes, comments, shares, and reviews will help grow the reach of this story. The links for these things should be in the description of this episode. Please feel free to email me at dearestsuziepodcast@gmail.com if you have anything you'd like to say. I'd love to chat or to hear about your stories as well. Thank you for listening, and God bless.